Okay, so we've connected up everything we needed to use VoiceLive Touch with a MIDI controller keyboard. We've got the mic input and stereo outputs. You could use mono if you want, the XLR, or just one of these quarter-inch outputs. Don't forget to go into setup, set that to mono if you're going to do it in mono. I've got it in stereo, sounds better. And we've got a MIDI cable coming from the MIDI controller keyboard right there. I've also got the Switch 3 connected up. It actually is a foot switch. As a keyboard player, you may or may not want to use that and just use the controls on the front panel of the unit. That's just as easy. And we've got the power connector right there. So now that it's connected up, let's play a note on the keyboard. That just confirms that MIDI is coming in. And that's good. So let's just check and make sure we got the right MIDI channel. Press and hold. Now in the setup menu, you can go all the way through. I think it's parameter number 11, MIDI channel. You can set that to MIDI channel, whatever your controller keyboard is set to. Mine's set to 1, so we're good there. But here, let me show you something. Press and hold the right arrow, and we go into the MIDI menu. There's 3 menus. There's setup, MIDI, and advanced. And this MIDI menu has a whole bunch of things we can change. We've already set MIDI channel. I'm going to set it back to 1 there. Set MIDI channel. But we can filter. You might want to filter out program changes, because if you make a program change on your controller keyboard, to change the sound, you might change the preset on VoiceLive Touch. So I've just changed the filter setting to filter program change. And the CC channel, continuous controller channel, I think that defaults to like channel 1 or something like that when the product ships. I'm going to turn that off so that if I make changes on the controller keyboard, like I turn down the volume or do something like that, that it doesn't affect any of the MIDI CC controllers that VoiceLive Touch responds to. Okay, so that's good. We're set up for now. Good. All right. Well, now let's have a listen. I'll load one of the favorites here. Here we go. This is a favorite that I saved earlier. It's got one voice of harmony and some reverb. Yeah. You can hear how the harmonies changed as I played the keyboard notes. That's the cool thing about it. You can just play normally. You can play comping style. A fairly limited comping style. You can't be like doing running bass lines and doing harmony, keyboard parts and things like that. You can't get too busy on your keyboard playing while you're controlling harmony. Of course, while the harmony's off, you can do whatever you want. But when the harmony is being controlled, you're going to want to stay fairly steady. But Natural Play is pretty good at figuring out what the real harmony should be based on your playing. So that's real cool. And let's go through some of the other presets, or rather the favorites. Here's favorite 2. Now this one turns on a couple other voices. Oh, yeah, yeah. While we're there, we can play with some of the voicings here. I just want to show you this bass voicing. This is kind of cool because what it does is it doesn't necessarily follow your voice pitch as you go up and down. It stays on the root note of your chord for sort of like a bass voice. I'll show you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can hear how the bass voice is staying there as my lead voice moves up. The high and low are following me, but the bass voice stays there. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, in that preset, the bass voice was just a little quiet. We can turn that up just by going in here, turning the level up a little bit. Let me just do that again for you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. I like that. I'm going to store that actually in favorite 2. Okay, so let's move on to some other things that you can do with VoiceLive Touch. We'll use another favorite here, hard tune. Oh yeah, oh. Let me go to that favorite. There we go. Sorry about that. Oh. The cool thing about using VoiceLive Touch with a controller keyboard or a guitar or whatever is that you're controlling the key of the hard tune as you play. So normally with using pitch correction, you have to keep setting the key and scale, but when you're using a MIDI keyboard or using a guitar, it follows what you're playing. Oh, 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 oh. This is cool because you don't have to be thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to set the key and scale all the time. That's great. And now those first two favorites I showed you were based on what are called natural play. So they interpret your keyboard playing, and they give you the harmony voices that move up and down with your voice. And there's sort of an interpretive layer there. Now what I'm going to show you now are these what's called notes mode presets, and these are higher up in the preset numbers. They're like 184 and beyond. But I've saved a couple to the favorites here. And basically what they are is there's no interpretation. Whatever note you play is what the harmony is going to be. So here, let's listen to that. It's easier just to listen rather than to say it. Whoa. Hear how my lead voice is moving around, but the harmonies are staying right where I put them, which is kind of cool. Yeah, do 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 do. Here's another preset that shows that off really well. That's just one of the presets up in the notes mode area. They started about preset 185, 687, 88, etc. And you can go and play with those. And those are just a really cool thing that you can only get when you play Voice Live Touch with a MIDI controller keyboard. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to show you more things about the MIDI setup menu, which is something you're going to have to know as a controller keyboard user, that guitar players don't have to know and things like that. So here we go. So we'll press the setup button. We had previously gone into the MIDI setup menu, which again, here's the advanced menu, the setup menu, and we're back in the MIDI setup menu. And we had previously turned the CC channel off so that continuous controller messages from the controller keyboard aren't changing Voice Live Touch. Let's keep going down through that list and I'll explain those to you. Transpose. This is only for notes mode, so that if you're playing notes mode and you're generally using, for example, just the left side of the keyboard to control your harmonies, you don't want the harmonies to be all really low. So if you set the transpose up a little higher, this is octaves, up and down in octaves. That way, playing harmony with your left hand won't be so low. Anyway, and moving up, split direction. You can set a split point on your MIDI controller keyboard, so that only the upper notes, only the lower notes control harmony. And again, this is for notes mode. And you can set a split point where what the note is. You can set, say here, A0. Here, there's a million of them here. So at A2, we'll go back to that split direction. Below A2 or above A2 will be the zone that controls harmonies. Okay, system exclusive ID, you don't need to mess with this. This is only if you've got two Voice Live Touches and they're connected to voice support and you want to edit and stuff, so don't worry about that. Vibrato boost, it's just a way of using the modulation wheel on your keyboard to control vibrato in the presets. Either you can have it to boost so that it gives more vibrato and then comes back to the factory default, or you can set it to manual so that when you sweep your mod wheel, vibratos go on, and then when you put it back to its neutral position, they go off. So I'll set that to boost, leave it there. Pitch bend range, this is kind of handy because with the notes mode presets, you can use your pitch wheel to control them. Let me give you an example. You heard how I was moving the pitch wheel up and down, and here, let me change it to something like 6, or let's go all the way, an octave. That's kind of cool for making spacey effects and stuff like that. That's pitch bend range. Next we have MIDI control. Now this is only if you're going to be using, generally you're going to be changing this if you're using a computer to do USB type stuff. It's set to merge here by default, and you're going to want to leave it there generally, because that means that the DIN connector in is expecting notes from your keyboard, and at the same time you can use a USB connection from your keyboard, or I'm sorry, from your computer, that will allow you to load presets using voice support. So you can load presets at the same time as you're playing the keyboard and sort of listen to the difference of them. And if you wanted to change that to MIDI, that means that the USB input is ignored and it's only MIDI. And if you set it to USB here, it ignores the DIN connector and uses only USB. Now you'd probably want to use this setting if you've got a newer MIDI controller keyboard that doesn't have a 5-pin DIN jack on it. It's only got a USB output to send its notes out. You might want to use that setting. So for now, I'm going to leave that set to merge. And that completes the cycle in the MIDI setup menu. And basically, those are all the things you need to know to use VoiceLive Touch with a MIDI controller keyboard.